Sorry about the bright light in the middle of the board, a reflection there, and I didn't notice until I start uh, rendering the video. So I will fix that in the next video. This is the 2020 version of War and Peace. I just got it. I'm excited to check it out. So it looks like to me all the basic rules are the same. The setup's the same. I don't really notice anything different. I don't have the old game with me to actually compare, but the board definitely looks a little different, especially the Danube Valley. And what I like about it in the rules is they condensed all the optional and updates that they put out throughout the general through the years, all in the same rules. So I really like that. They do clarify, made the reading a little easier when you're reading about certain things. One rule that I know I had a problem with in the old game was you were able to be on blockade duty, the English, let's say, and then you can come out and intercept and then go back to blockade duty because they never made that clear. Where these rules specifically say you have to stay at sea now when you do that, which makes totally sense. Another rule I remember having a problem with sometimes are the black production cities. They do not count as victory cities. I do notice that Budapest is quite far from where the French had to go in the other board. Usually it was like Austria and Budapest was here. Now it's a little different. They did streamline the victory conditions. Now, the only way the French can get an automatic decisive victory is if they conquer London and control 19 production cities, which is going to be tough because, England, to conquer England, not London. And the other way to get an automatic French decisive victory is to conquer Moscow and own 35 port cities, which is, if you count them, it's basically the entire board here, and one of them has to be Lisbon. That means you have to get over here. So the automatic victories seem pretty tough to me. Now, to get a marginal victory is if you conquer Moscow and only hold 19 port cities. That may be doable. The other one, of course, is to do like you did in the old game. You conquer Austria, you conquer Prussia, you have to hold on to Paris at the end. Now, I'm not saying the victory condition doesn't say you have to conquer those, but remember in the old game, what people would do is conquer Austria, conquer Prussia, and then they just set up a fortress here and hold on to Paris. And it kind of made for a boring game. But in these rules, if you try to do that, it's okay. You can get a marginal victory, but you had to have invaded Spain, and you have to invade Russia at some point in this game. So for a two-player game, they really streamlined these rules. And they're going to make you follow the historical route, which is cool. So in our game, we're just going to attack Austria, then you got to attack Prussia, then I'm going to attack Spain, then I'm going to attack Russia. So that's just the way it's going to go. So that'll be exciting. One rule I'm having a problem with is in the old game the board was cut off right here, so Florence was the production city. In this one I think it's an error. I think Naples is the production city, and we have to take that to get Kingdom of Naples on our side. That's the way I'm going to play it. And then this one's a little weird to me. The Austrians control Munich. That's what it says in the scenario, in the campaign game. But Bavaria is a French satellite state. So when you use supply, you can only use supply from a major city in your home country. And if you look at their home country, you got Prague here and Innsbruck. Well, there's nobody in supply with movement points. You have to be within 3 movement points of a army unit. You can have a trail. I'm not going to explain all the rules. I'm just assuming you guys know it. And these guys aren't within 3. This is 1, 2, 3, and you have to count movement points as you were to move. So you got to cross a river. That's an extra movement. So that's not within range. Innsbruck's not within range of anybody here. So it's just I'm assuming that Munich is the supply source for the Austrians, even though they don't own Bavaria. So it's kind of strange there, but that's the way I'm going to play it. The Austrians are getting their supply from Munich right now. As I've stated before in the old one, the best thing for the Austrians to do is to do a delay in action down the Danube Valley and wait for the Russians to get here, pull back slowly, get Charles here, and you have a 50% chance of winning that battle. I may try something a little different this time. Now, you see the setup here. Ferdinand and Mack can be set up within 1 hex of Ulm. So I spread them out and make 3 mobile forces. That way it's harder to surround. And what I was looking at was just trying to put a man or 2 on each one with a leader and never attacking and just keep the rest of the army moving. Then I found it was too difficult to keep too many leaders here to keep these forces picked up and keep trying to keep forces here, because when the Austrian turns go, since he's out, I'm going to cut his supply. So when he's out of supply, he cannot overrun and he can't advance after combat. So he's pretty much stuck there, but all he has to do is like kill a piece, and then I have to keep replacing the piece. So I thought that's not a very good idea. Let's just go ahead, surround it, attack it, force them all into 1 hex, and then keep them pinned right there. And then it's easy to contain him when he's in 1 hex. So I'll do that as I'm moving down the valley as fast as I can. And then I like to bring Napoleon over here and start Napoleon with Massena's force right here. Now the question is, Charles, he can be within 1 hex of Venice, and I back him up because I like to get him in the valley. I may not do this time. I may just try to come over, maybe in the Alps here, and threaten not only going here, but threaten going here. I don't know. I'll have to decide when I'm playing, because when I'm playing as a solitaire player, when it's my turn as the English and I got to do Austria, I play it as what I would do. So we'll see when the time comes. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and surround this force, cut off the supply. I may not even completely surround it, because as long as I attack like 2 hexes right here, then I can pick where I retreat his force when he retreats, and I'll put them all in 1 hex. So that's what the plan is there. And then if I don't need everybody here, I'll try to move some down the valley right now, but usually you need most of them anyways. Now I started Napoleon. I can be within 1 hex of Strasbourg. Napoleon and 2 guard are there. The rest of the army is right there. I'll make the moves and then come back and show you. The other thing is Nelson at sea. Now, me, as an English player, to put Nelson in the sea with 1 ship, the French come out, and you get in a battle if the English intercept. If the die roll is a 6, not only are you losing an English ship, which is a problem, but it's a catastrophe that you lost Nelson. So on the first turn of this game, if I'm playing a campaign game, to have something like that happen to me if I'm the English player, I would just hate it. So I don't take those kind of chances when I play these games. I play pretty methodical and just grind it out. And so I don't take that chance. That'd be totally demoralizing. So I always like to start Nelson and the English ship on blockade duty at Cartagena, and then I can come out with 2 ships to intercept. Now if I don't get him and he gets by, oh well. You've seen in my other game, you can see how the French do break out and they do run blockades, and they get the Navy going and try to prevent England from sending production points to Prussia. And then if I got to chase the French around the water for a couple years, maybe 2 years at the most, before you get a handle on it, is usually what happens. Unless the French really get lucky. Then I'm willing to deal with that instead of taking that chance of losing Nelson on the first turn. So that's why Nelson's starting right there. Another thing is I'm not using the commerce rules. As you see, I don't have a lot of room here. I'm in the middle of moving. That's why I don't even have the old game with me. and I have to cover the board right here. So the commerce rules are out. We're just basically got the navies. Now, one other thing with the navies. In the old game, I used to have Russia attack Sweden pretty quick and get the Swedish fleets on your side, and you also want the Danish fleets on your side. If the French can get those on their side, that would be beneficial to them. So I always had the Russians take them so the English could use them. You know, the French, I'd like to get the French to take the Danish so they can use the ships. But now they made a rule. The Swedish ships and the Russian ships cannot combine with any other ships. So basically, they're two ships on their own. So it doesn't make them as valuable or as strong as they could be. So with that being said, I'll have to look at that and see if I want to deal with trying to attack Sweden. Now, I've looked at England trying to take Sweden and get those ships out of the way, or at least destroy them, and we'll see how that goes. If the French get control of the water here, it's going to be difficult for that. And then I've also looked at the English trying to get Denmark. But you're just throwing those countries onto the French side, and the French will be pretty easy for them to protect Denmark from the English. So I don't know about doing that either right away. So the Prussians will be used on the alliance table. The Russians say you specifically don't, and the Austrians you don't, but the Prussians, it doesn't say that. So we're going to go ahead and do that, even though they have this special die roll that you follow 3 turns after the conquest of Austria. Even if they're anti-French, you still got to do it. I'm not sure why, but we'll just follow those rules. Let's start with the naval phase. And what we're going to do is bring the French out, and they are going to attempt to move, and the English are going to go ahead and intercept. Once they come out, you're supposed to move them to this box. There's no modifier for the interception here, so they get a +1 for Nelson in the interception die roll. Let's see if they can intercept. So it's a 2, and you get to add 1 is a 3. That means the interception failed. On our card, you use the pursuit table for interception, and you need a 5. So it failed. Now, since it failed, he has to remain at sea, but since he failed the interception, he is allowed to intercept other ships. But once this guy is trying to leave the zone, he can't intercept him. So he went to sea for 1. This is a free movement to go in the box. Now we're going to go to the Atlantic Ocean. That is 2. Now once he goes in the new ocean, he can be intercepted by these British ships. But because it's 3 French ships, and he's not going to have any modifiers, and if he loses, then he leaves blockade duty, which is the case here. I don't think we're going to do that with the English. But now that you're out in the sea zone, what I want to do is I want to attack. So his movement is 1, 2, and I want to attack something that only has 1 English ship in it. Now let's go into here for 3. And then, because what I like in here, what I'm really interested in is stopping these transports from coming to this side and transporting production points to Prussia to get Prussia in on the war. So that succeeds in that. But I also want to free up at least a French ship, and here I can get 3 to 1 on this 1 English ship. So I'm going to try that. So as I move, I am going to move into this hex, which is the port of Antwerp. So I'm in the hex, and that's the end of his movement, because he went 4. 1, 2, 3, and it only costs 1 to enter the port city. Now at this point, I can decide to run the blockade with this ship. If I decide to run the blockade and I want to use these to fight, the English player can decide to combine the battle together or not. And if he chooses not to, he can choose which one to fight first, and he can thus fight the blockaded ship first. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to run the blockade with him, because why let the English
attack a French ship one-on-one. I'm just going to sit there, no running. We are going to finish this movement with French ships in the same hex as the English ships, which will, according to the rules, constitute a combat when the combat naval phase starts. So, question is, do I want to move anything else? Now, since these left blockade duty, the Spanish is free to leave. If he's free to leave, these guys can intercept again and they'll destroy it. And I don't want that. The more ships that the Spanish lose is going to hurt on the Spanish alliance table when we start that. So I'd rather not do that. But I'm going to go ahead and attempt to run a blockade right here. We have a 6. That is an escape. Wow, I can't believe the die rolls are going great for the French right now. So we escape with these 2 French ships. Now again, can you attempt to intercept? Now once he leaves the zone, once he escapes, this force, since he started the turn in the same hex and they were under the fortress marker, meaning they were blockading, he actually escaped from this force. He's not allowed to intercept this force. So someone else can, but then you'd be leaving blockading duty and they're not going to do it. So the French here with 2 will go into here, and so that's 1, 2. I can go, if I go into here and I have the transport of men, I can start putting pressure on the English. You can be attacked now with stationary interception, they call it. So instead of staying at sea and getting attacked, it's actually safer to get in a port and let them blockade you. Then you're not going to lose your ships. So let's go ahead and do that. Now the problem is they're just going to come right back and blockade you. I'll tell you what, let's move this guy to here. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to move him into there. Might as well put one big force there. That's the end of my naval movement. Let's go ahead and attack this English force. It's going to be 2 to 1. And let's see if we can continue our lucky die rolling. 5. Larger force is a 0. Smaller force is a K. 1 naval unit sunk, and we sink an English ship. And that goes in the English force pool. That's what we're after. This is what we try to do with the French Navy. Now we just gained another ship that was on blockade duty there. Now we're getting ourselves a French force, and we're protecting the Prussians from receiving production points from the English. So pretty successful first naval phase for the French. Now I'm going to go ahead and move some troops and all, because it takes a little while and no need for you watching that. Okay, so the first force I moved was the Napoleon's force here. So Napoleon, he goes 1, 2, 3, and then force marches 2 with the guard to that hex. So that's where he is. Now because they're spread out, I have to cut off his supply, but I don't want to, even though I get to pick his retreat, I can't make him move farther away from a supply source than where he started. So I thought about just surrounding the force and getting as many French down the valley as I could, but I would have to cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 hexes I have to continue to cover, and if I want to be able to move the men, I have to have leaders with them. Otherwise the men are stuck there. So it's easier for me to actually attack these 2 hexes and then force the retreat to the cavalry. And now I only have to cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes. So that's the plan. So the first force, I moved 3 cavalry to this hex. Lance went here with 5 men. I'm going to start moving him down the valley. I dropped everybody else off right here with the cavalry from Lands, and Lands continue to move on, because if you start with a leader, he can drop you off wherever you want. You just can't pick up a guy somewhere and keep moving. And then Ney goes to this hex, because I'll end up putting a man there, because remember, I have to block the retreats and force them into one hex. So this force is now going to move out. Okay, I was off by one hex here. I was dropping off Lands' men here and then moved here, but I was wrong. Lands had to drop the men off here and move up, and then Devout came in here with these men. He dropped off a couple to Ney. The cavalry blocked that one. Soult took the rest of the men there, so I was able to pick up those reinforcements, and then Leader F blocked these two, and the cavalry went to Munich. So I have forces as far as I can down the valley while cutting off this retreat, so when I attack these hexes, I can pick them to go into there. Messina moved the whole force to Napoleon, so Napoleon took Messina's entire force, plus Napoleon has the guard, and then Messina went on to occupy that hex with that force. So there's the move. We are interested in taking Naples, because I want to get the Italian minor states here. That's going to help us move this marker into the alliance table and keep the Prussians out of the war. So, but I also need a force to get into Trustees. I don't want to really waste Napoleon that way, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and force march one French to Naples with the leader here, 3, and then I'm going to force march in 1 to Naples. And it's a 3, and since they're regular French, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the force march table, but they're always -1 if they're regular French, and then depending if they're guards or if they're unsupplied, or if you're in Spain or Russia, and winter turns, it's modified. So anything but a 6, well, with French, they're pretty much guaranteed to go 4. Other armies are not. So he makes it, so he went 1, 2, 3, 4, then he goes 5, 6, 7, 8. And then he'll be ready to move on to help out up here and occupy that force. So that's the movement, and we will go to the attack.
You have to declare your attacks first. So the attack is going to come from Devout to Mack, Soult to Ferdinand, Napoleon to John. The moment you declare this, he can go in the city or stay outside of it. Now, me trying to get, you can see where the French are, and there's no Austrians down the valley, so I want to get as many as I can here, so I want to go outside. Plus it gives me 2 to my defense because of the mountains, for a total of 3, and then they have 2 for the mountain. So basically I'm going to get a +1 to my dice roll, and I'm not using the optional campaign combat results table. I'm just using the regular one. I'm supposed to roll 2 dice on the attack. Alright, so 6 becomes a 7 at 2 to 1. And larger force will lose none, smaller force will lose 1. That's usually the way it goes. Put this in the Austrian force pool, and now you decide if you, well, basically you go on to the next attack, but since this is isolated by itself, nothing else is going to matter, I'm just going to finish it. So they decide first if they want to withdraw the French. He says nope, they will withdraw. Now, the French have more cavalry than the Austrians, therefore he's going to lose an additional Austrian, so we'll knock that over to 1. Oh, that's a 2. So we'll switch it out. Okay, and then we're going to withdraw to the mountain pass. And then let's go ahead and do, I can pick whatever order I want to attack. Let's do Ferdinand. Ferdinand has 5. He is in the city, but he's going to decide to go outside of it too, because remember, we want to cause as many problems to the French as we can. If you go in a city, you're going to make it easier. So the French have 2, 4, 6, 7 to his 5. So it's 1 to 1. And the morale of the French are better than the Austrians, the regular French. So that's 1 to the dice. Leadership gives me another one. So I do have 2 to the dice roll here at 1 to 1. 6 becomes a 7. And then for this force, the smaller one has a 5, and it's still going to be 1. So both sides are losing 1. So Ferdinand's going to go down to 4 men, and he is going to, we'll wait there a minute because other battles can't affect this. So you fight 1 round, and now this is going to fight a round. And Mac has 6 men. And Messina has 2, 3, 4, 5. And Messina has 5. So the Austrians are actually the larger force. So you're going to have to subtract. We have more regular French, so it's 1, 2. You're going to have to subtract 2 off this dice. 10 becomes an 8 at 1 to 1. And that's going to be a 1 to 1. I forgot to take a French out. And remember, you have to lose the morale. These 50% of losses have to come to from the same morale that you used. So Mac loses 1. So if you just keep staying there fighting, you're going to help the French, I believe, because if you get rid of this, then this whole force can just move faster. We want them to deal with that force as long as they can. So both battles are done. The French are not retreating. And then you decide if the Austrians are retreating, and they both say yes, they are retreating. And so we get to pick their retreat hex since they are out of supply. And we're going to pick them to go to there. We'll move Salt in after the advance. So we advance after combat. So after we advance after combat, now it's easier for me to keep 1 hex surrounded, and we'll just whittle it down. Most of these forces, they're all mobile now. They all have leaders or they're cavalry, and we're going to head down the Danube Valley. And that is the French's turn. It was a very, very successful French turn.
And I think I'm going to stop the video here. Now I have like the entire French-Austrian campaign here. So there's, a couple hours worth of video, and unfortunately it has that bright light on the board, but after the Austrian campaign, we will get rid of that. Sorry about that. Anyways, that'll be this video, and the next one will be up shortly.